Good morning, boys and girls. We started off the summer quarter in the Old Testament. We started in the book of 1 Kings, and we were studying about Elijah the prophet. We read about how God told Elijah to hide by the brook Cherith, and he was fed bread and meat by ravens. He helped the widow of Zarephath, and her flour and oil never ran out. Then Elijah challenged the prophets of Baal to a competition. The prophets called on Baal all day. Baal, of course, could not hear them. God sent fire to burn up Elijah's sacrifice. And this proved to King Ahab that God is the one true God.
Old Elijah was a prophet, serving God so very faithfully. When his life on earth was over, God took him, as we shall see. God took him up to heaven, fiery chariot, and the horses came in a great big whirlwind. Oh, praise Jehovah's mighty name. Elisha was walking with Elijah, would not leave him as they went along. He loved his friend very dearly and would never do him wrong. God took him up to heaven, fiery chariot, and the horses came in a great big whirlwind. Oh, praise Jehovah's mighty name. When Elijah started to ascend, he threw his cloak upon the ground. Elisha knew that he would be blessed. God's spirit then in him was found. God took him up to heaven, fiery chariot, and the horses came in a great big whirlwind. Oh, praise Jehovah's mighty name.
Elisha had double the spirit that Elijah had. He also helped a widow just like Elijah did. He told the widow and her son to gather all the jars that they could find. When they poured their small jar of oil into the other jars, it kept flowing until they filled all of the jars. Elisha also healed Naaman of leprosy.
We're going to do a song about Naaman. This is a chant, and I will say something, and then you will say either oh no or oh yes, like my helpers here. Naaman had a bad disease.
Oh no!
He had leprosy.
Oh no!
Couldn't lead his army.
Oh no!
What could Naaman do? Naaman had a servant girl.
Oh yes!
She knew the answer.
Oh yes!
Call for the prophet.
Oh yes!
Elisha said, okay, dip in the Jordan.
Oh no!
The dirty, smelly Jordan?
Oh no!
Can I use a different one?
Oh no!
Naaman said, okay. He went to the Jordan.
Oh yes!
He dipped 7 times.
Oh yes!
Naaman was cured.
Oh yes!
No more leprosy.
Yay!
There were many wicked kings that ruled God's people during this period in history, but there were some good ones too. Joash became king when he was 7 years old. He repaired the temple of the Lord. Hezekiah became king when he was 25 years old, and he was best known for tearing down all of the idols in the land. He was also known for praying to God to ask for help.
Hezekiah, good King Hezekiah, trusted God and loved him all his days. Hezekiah, God would have to try ya. Would you serve and follow all his ways? God said, take the idols down. He obeyed without a sound, chopped them down to the ground. Oh, Hezekiah, good King Hezekiah, trusted God and loved him all his days. Hezekiah, no one can deny ya. You obeyed and followed all God's ways. God said, take the idols down. He obeyed without a sound, chopped them down to the ground. No more found in the town. No, Hezekiah, good King Hezekiah, trusted God and followed all his days. We must also do our part, love the Lord with all our heart, trust in him rest in him, live for him, honor him. Oh, we must be like Hezekiah, good King Hezekiah. He obeyed and followed all God's way.
Many years later, and after several wicked kings, Josiah became king at 8 years old. He also made sure the temple was repaired. During those repairs, the high priest found a book of the law. It was read to the king, and King Josiah realized that they had not been following God's law. He made sure that the law was read to everyone in the kingdom, and the people followed God's laws while Josiah was king. We also talked about King Uzziah. He started out really good, and God gave him a talent of inventing things. But after a while, he became full of pride. So much pride that God caused him to develop leprosy.
King Josiah had a fire in his heart. King Josiah had a fire in his heart. When he read God's holy word, King Josiah's heart was stirred. King Josiah had a fire in his heart. Hezekiah had a fire in his heart. Hezekiah had a fire in his heart. When he tore the idols down, they went tumbling to the ground. Hezekiah had a fire in his heart. King Uzziah had a fire in his heart. King Uzziah had a fire in his heart. But Uzziah's fire died when his heart was filled with pride. King Uzziah lost the fire in his heart. King Josiah had a fire in his heart. Hezekiah had a fire in his heart. But Uzziah's fire died when his heart was filled with pride. King Uzziah lost the fire in his heart. Let us keep the fire burning in our hearts. Let us keep the fire burning in our hearts. Let us be like King Josiah, Hezekiah, not Uzziah. Let us keep the fire burning in our hearts.
Then we studied about Nehemiah, and he was a cupbearer for the king, and he helped to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. Then we learned about King Ahasuerus, also known as Xerxes, which is what Miss Natalie likes to call him. He hosted a banquet, and when he called for Queen Vashti, she refused to come. His advisors said Vashti should be banished, and a search was made for a new queen. We can read all about this in the book of Esther, because Esther was the new queen.
A young Jewish maiden named Esther became the new queen of the land. The king had a servant named Haman. The people bowed down to this man. Bow down, Mordecai, bow down to me, to me. Bow down, Mordecai, bow down to me. But Mordecai just wouldn't listen. He did not obey the command. The king was tricked by evil Haman to kill every Jew in the land. So Mordecai came to Queen Esther. Please help us and talk to the king. The people of God are in danger. Perhaps that's why God made you queen. Help us, please go and talk to the king, the king. Help us, oh please go and talk to the king. She told the king all about Haman, and Haman was very afraid. The king went and called for his soldiers. Go hang him on gallows he made. Queen Esther saved God's people Israel. No matter how hard Haman tried, don't go against God and his people. Be always upon the Lord's side. Always be on the side of the Lord, the Lord. Always be on the side of the Lord.
We also learned about Job, and we can learn about his story in the book of Job.
Job, he was a wealthy man. Job, he was a wealthy man. Job, he was a wealthy man, a wealthy man. All his things were wiped away, carried off or swiped away. All his kids were gone that day, all in one day. Job, he was a patient man. Job, he was a patient man. Job, he was a patient man, a patient man. Naked came I from the womb, naked then will I return. The good Lord gives, the good Lord takes, blessed be the Lord. Job, he then broke out in sores. Job, he then broke out in sores. Job, he then broke out in sores, broke out in sores. His wife said, I recommend, just curse God and this will end. His friend said, Job must have sinned, Job must have sinned. Job, he was a puzzled man. Job, he was a puzzled man. Job, he was a puzzled man, a puzzled man. God spoke up in a whirlwind. You are wrong, as are your friends. I will bless you once again, bless you again. Job, he was a wealthy man. Job, he was a wealthy man. Job, he was a wealthy man, a wealthy man.
We learned about a lot of prophets, and all of these are books of prophets, except for Lamentations, which was written by Jeremiah the prophet. Some of them were chosen in a unique way. Isaiah told God, I am a man of unclean lips. And a seraphim touched a live coal to Isaiah's lips. And then Isaiah said, Here am I, send me. Jeremiah thought he was too young to speak for God, but the hand of God touched Jeremiah's mouth. And God said, I have put my words in your mouth. The people did not want to hear Jeremiah's warning, and they threw him into a dry well, but he was later rescued. Ezekiel was another prophet of God. One time, God told him to eat a scroll. So Ezekiel ate it, and he said it was like honey and sweetness. Ezekiel was called God's watchman. Once Ezekiel had a vision of a valley of bones, and suddenly God made those bones come together. They developed bodies, and God breathed on them and brought them back to life again. You probably remember all about the prophet Daniel, how he would not defile himself with King Nebuchadnezzar's food, how his friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were rescued from a fiery furnace, and how he read the handwriting on the wall for King Belshazzar, and how King Darius threw him into the lion's den. And finally, the prophet Jonah, and how he tried to hide from God. God wanted him to go to Nineveh, but Jonah got on a ship going toward Tarshish instead.
Though he was a prophet of God, he would not go to Nineveh. He tried to sail away from the Lord. Splash, down went Jonah. The ship was saved, the sea was calm, but he was all alone. Soon there came a friend for him. Whoop, down went Jonah. He traveled on for 3 long days, but now the trip was over. The big fish spit him on the beach. Yuck, out went Jonah.
Jonah then went to Nineveh like he was supposed to do. And when he preached to them, they repented. Woo, we learned a lot this quarter.